Good morning. It is truly a joy being here, and I ask mercy from those who were here yesterday, because how many times can you listen to the same guy, right? Yesterday, now, and at the 11 o'clock service. But it is truly a blessing being here, and I want to thank all those who had a part in helping to make sure that this time, this moment with you happened. So, of course, you know, the main purpose of being here is to celebrate and remember the life and ministry of Absalom Jones. And I'm honored to be here, to be a part of that, and very honored and impressed with your history and your decision to honor Absalom Jones and the Philadelphia 11 and Mr. Rogers with those 3 panels. I think that's just pure genius, and you are to be commended for that. And so, bravo, bravo, bravo. I want to begin by sharing a story with you, and it is a story about 4 disciples or monks, students, who decided to spend some time at a monastery. They wanted to spend some time deep in their faith, and they committed to a 6-month retreat. And it would be 6 months of silence. They would not talk. 2 months went by and everything was going well, and about 2 weeks later they were all in the sanctuary praying. And they noticed that one of the sanctuary lamps was about to go out. So they were all mindful of that. There were attendants in the sanctuary cleaning and attending to things. And sure enough, the sanctuary lamp went out, but the attendants weren't paying attention, so they were all leaving. One of the students said, "Hey, the sanctuary lamp is out." The second one said, "What's wrong with you? We said we would not talk." The third one, "You know, that's why I don't go anywhere with the 2 of you." The fourth one, "Thank God I'm the only one who has not spoken." I share that story with you because, as you know, we are living in a time when oftentimes we find ourselves reacting rather than responding. We find ourselves, and that is understandable, because these are challenging times. These are times when many of us are quite anxious. These are times when many of us don't quite know what to do. And oftentimes it's the nature of being human that oftentimes when you don't know what to do, the first thing you do is to break your vow, or break your commitment, or lose your cool, or think something you shouldn't think, or say something you shouldn't say, or do something that you shouldn't do. So, I believe that whenever we celebrate the life of Absalom Jones and what he represents to history, what he represents to the church, what he represents for all of us. It's always an invitation for us to pay attention to who we are, to pay attention to our own integrity, and to pay attention to how we are reacting. How we are reacting. Now, when you think of the life of Absalom Jones and why this man is such a gift to all of us, and then let me just say this. Part of the gift of Absalom Jones is remembering that we are all connected to each other. Maybe John Donne said it best. No man is an island. Or as we would say today, no person is an island, right? We are not alone. We're all connected to each other. And that is a great gift. Because we're connected to each other, we can all learn from each other. Yesterday, in our conversation, I think I shocked a few people, just a few people in the audience by saying, you're probably blacker than I am. You're probably more of a black person than I am. And I'm probably more white than you are, which is my way of saying we're all one, right? We're all one family. We all come from the same stock. And it oftentimes surprises many people when they do their DNA tests to recognize that they have African roots. But truth be told, we are all from the same place. We're all connected. All of that to say that it is important for us to recognize as we celebrate Absalom Jones that we can learn from each other's culture. We can learn from each other's culture. There is this joke that's going around, and I know it's a joke because I had heard it before. It was said that somebody in the present administration said this, but I had long heard this, that I think it might have been the wife of a governor or a mayor in Texas who said that if English was good enough for Jesus, it was good enough for all of us. Because there are actually some people who believe that English was the language of the Bible and that Jesus actually spoke English. That in and of itself speaks to how oftentimes we limit our knowledge, all right? So when I speak about connectivity, let us not celebrate our stupidity. Let us not celebrate our stupidity. Or let us not celebrate our isolation. Let us not celebrate the things that keep us apart. You are never too old to learn from another culture. You are never too old to learn another language. You are never too old to learn from someone else's experience. And that is a gift. When we make a commitment to find ways of learning from each other and celebrating each other, and again, coming back to my point, to know that we are connected to each other. I also shared with the group yesterday that as we celebrate Absalom Jones, a black man, a man who was the first priest in the first African-American priest in this country, that it invites us to think about the role of religion, especially in terms of how we treat each other. And I shared yesterday with the group that oftentimes people don't recognize, don't remember that the first single, standalone, adult convert to Christianity was the Ethiopian eunuch. The Ethiopian eunuch was baptized by Philip in Acts chapter 8 and baptized before St. Paul. It is a reminder to us, and I reminded the group, that there was a time when the whole of Africa was known as Ethiopia. It is a reminder to us that Christianity existed in Africa centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries before it arrived in Europe. And the Ethiopian Orthodox Church still exists and finds its root going back to that experience of Acts chapter 8. So for us to recognize and remember that Christianity existed in Africa from just about the start of Christianity. And then I said to the group, it then becomes quite shocking that human beings got to the point where they could justify the enslavement of Africans under the guise of following or instituting what they believed was the will of God. Many of the slaves brought to this country and throughout the Americas were actual Christians. Many of the slaves brought to this country and throughout the Americas were Christians. And it's important for us to acknowledge that. It is important for us to acknowledge that, to think about how we treat each other, because again, this too becomes part of the nature of history and life, that oftentimes the more things change, the more they remain the same. And I invited them yesterday to think about that great saying we have in Jamaica, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. I think we might have learned that from Socrates, who said, the unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is not worth living. Because if we don't pay attention, if we don't pay sufficient attention to history, we will keep repeating the same acts of terror against each other. So, the fact that many of the slaves were Christians and it didn't seem to matter to those who were in control and in power, and when you try to erase the truth, then you create a new story. And the new story was these folks were savages, uncivilized, did not know God, had no skills, and it was justified to enslave them. One of the things I like to share with folks is that, I'm kind of useless. I can't screw in a light bulb. I can't fix anything in my car. I've never changed that tire. I can't, whenever my wife orders something from Amazon or wherever and it needs assembling, I'm like, I go into crisis mode. I can't do any of that. So, no matter if you taught me, and I oftentimes think of that in terms of the history of this country where the slaves built so much of the infrastructure in this country. And again, it's another misconception that is spread, acting as if these slaves had no knowledge of anything. It is important for us to remember that the heart of the slave trade was a deliberate attempt to capture and enslave the smartest, the brightest philosophers, lawyers, chiefs, architects, woodworkers, and that is part of what this country is built on. The deliberate abducting of skilled people from Africa. The people who came to this country on the slave ships, many of them were Christians, many of them were philosophers, many of them were skilled workers, many of them were lawyers. These folks were quite intelligent. And all you have to do is read up a little bit on, just to lift up one person, Frederick Douglass. And you realize the intellect, the class, and the sophistication of so many of the slaves whose stories and experiences still get buried to this day. So, the ongoing invitation for all of us to learn about the life of Absalom Jones, to learn how this man, because of his love for Jesus, made such a difference in his life and such a difference in the life of the church. One of the things that I am most fascinated about by Absalom Jones is his largesse of heart. I love the fact that he first committed to buying his wife's freedom. To me, that speaks volume. And that speaks volume in terms of how we are called to live and to be in this world. Our primary concern must never be for our own good. Our primary concern must never, ever be for our own good. I know that oftentimes as Americans, there is that emphasis on America first. But if I'm honest, and if truth be told, and if I remain connected, I recognize that that is a human way of thinking. We want to think of ourselves first. The gift and the power of Absalom Jones's life was his willingness to think first about his wife. And so that question comes to us now as we live in these times. Because again, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Our history, our life just keeps going around in patterns. So I would say that to be human, to be alive, to be who you are now, it means there is someone in your life that needs freedom. There is someone whom you need to think of more than you think of yourself. Now, of course, most human beings spend their life going around and they never, ever face that question. So you have run out of luck now. You have met the Jamaican who has said to you, there is someone in your life or a situation in your life that needs your attention. There is someone in your life or something in your life that needs your attention. You are made to stand up for someone, to stand up for something. Have you figured it out yet? When will you, and how will you respond to that call? It's also just the nature of the spiritual life. And I had a writing teacher who said, never use adjectives. Don't ever use adjectives. She would say there is no such thing as the spiritual life. There's just life. There is just life. And so there's no letting any human being off the hook. I still struggle with what she said, but every now and again I go, yeah, I guess that makes sense. So if there's no spiritual life, then it's not just a task for spiritual people. And then if you get rid of that adjective, then you realize every person has the task of living a life centered around that question. What is God calling me to do for someone else? How is God inviting me to live my life for others? That is the deciding question, the most important question, and when we think of Absalom-Jones, that is a powerful reminder of how we are called to live. Another aspect of Absalom-Jones that I admire is his personal integrity. And when we think of somebody else's integrity, then it also always falls on us to get in touch with our own integrity. What makes you true to yourself? What makes you true to yourself? What makes you remain faithful to what you know and who you are? What makes you faithful? That question of integrity, that question of being true even when no one else is looking, is an important one. How would you describe your integrity? And what makes you true to your integrity? Now look at the life of Absalom-Jones, and this is where his integrity comes in, for me anyhow. Imagine being in a religion that told you every single day that you do not belong, that you're not even human, and that God could never love you. Imagine being in a system built on saying you don't belong and you're a second-class citizen. Again, human beings, we have a way of doing this to each other all the time. I sometimes reflect on the genius of the book of Genesis. Pure genius. In the book of Genesis, the first sin was this. God said, don't eat the fruit. And you know what we said? You're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do. So what did we do? We ate the fruit. I think that's pure genius. Pure genius. If I could find the person who wrote the book of Genesis, classic. Because guess what? That was their way of saying that is built into our DNA. That since the beginning of time, we human beings have said to God, you're not the boss of me. I don't care what you say. I'm going to do what I want. And so we still do that today. So again, the spiritual question for each of us is to figure out, how are we disobeying God? In a strange way, and this is frightening in its own way. To be human is to say no to God. It's like our most natural inclination to say no to God. You're not the boss of me. Don't tell me what to do. Because, we human beings, we love our independence. Don't tell me what to do. So again, this is a powerful question and a powerful invitation for all of us, because what the writer of Genesis was doing and trying to say to us is that every moment of our lives, we're saying to God, you are not the boss of me. Are you saying that? Do you find yourself saying, I don't care what God says. I don't care what. I'm going to do what I want. So I invite you to think about that. Think about the ways in your life where you keep saying, God is not my boss. Because the writer of Genesis says it is as natural as the skin you walk around with to say to God, God, you can't tell me what to do. So that's the first sin. The second sin, again, I call this pure genius, whoever wrote the Bible. You know what's the second sin in the Bible? A brother killing his own brother. Whew. Pure genius. Who thought of that? A brother killing his own brother. Why? Because the brother made an offering. It's not that the brother went out and did something crazy. No. Abel offered something to God, and God accepted it. And his brother was furious. Killed him. I bet you never thought of yourself as a killer. But yeah. So I want you to, something I've been coming pretty conscious of is that everything comes to us on different levels. So when the writer of Genesis says it's in our nature to disobey God and it's in our nature to kill, you kill spiritually, you kill emotionally, you kill financially, you kill psychologically, you kill culturally, you kill politically, and the list could go on and on. Human beings, every single one of us, possesses this deep nature to kill. And as we say in Jamaica, check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you don't pay attention to that, you will keep doing it. We keep killing each other. Now look. Look at the situation in the Middle East. These are brothers and sisters, cousins, family members at each other's throat for years and years and years and years and years. And nobody seems willing enough to stop the madness, to stop the killing. Look at Russia and Ukraine. What a shame that is for all of humanity. They're the same family. Brothers killing each other, and the whole world is just, we can't figure out how to stop that? I mean, what a shame. You know, again, Absalom-Jones, slavery, the human tendency to hurt each other, the human tendency to find excuse why it's okay to enslave and to kill, coming all the way from Genesis. Look at the madness. Ukraine and Russia. It's the same, they're so related. Same family. And don't be fooled, right? Because the news oftentimes is complicit in this disobedience of God and the killing of each other. And sometimes the news media allow us to kill each other by not highlighting the truth of the reality. When you think of all the lives that are being destroyed and all the lives that are being broken, the children, the women, when you see the images in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Palestine, and sometimes in Israel too, in Ukraine primarily, but sometimes in Russia too. And you get in Sudan, and you get in Venezuela and Iran, and on and on and on. What are we doing to each other? Why do we keep disobeying God? And why do we keep killing each other? And when will it stop? And how will it stop? And again, this is the invitation of Absalom-Jones when we read about his life and what he did and how he stayed true to his integrity. Are you capable? Are you capable of loving even when you are not loved? Are you capable of showing up even when you are not welcomed? Are you capable of standing up for another human being? Are you capable of standing up for love? Are you capable of getting in touch with your commonality? Are you capable of recognizing that we're all one family? We are all in this together. Are you capable of waking up? Because most human beings, you know what I've discovered too? Do you know that most human beings never breathe? I like you. She's like, what? Yes! We just sniff. Right? We just sniff. Most human beings live their entire lives and never fill their lungs the way the lungs need to be filled. It would cut your medical bill in half, and it will give you a longer and healthier life. Right, Sarah? Breathe. That's right. You got to breathe. Most human beings don't breathe. And you start from that very simple fact. And then you also recognize that most human beings are actually dead. Yeah, most people in this room actually are dead. You know, they're walking around, but they're as dead as a nail. Dead. You know that song, Oh Yes, I'm the Great Pretender? Yeah, we're all pretending. We're as dead as a nail. And as I said to the group yesterday, like this becomes the invitation of life, and this becomes the spiritual call, because God is saying, why won't you wake up? Why not be the person who is alive? Why not be the person who breathes? Why not be the person who says, you know what, I'm not going to kill. I'm not going to think about killing. I'm not going to speak about killing. And I'm not going to kill with my actions. Why not be the person who listens to what God says? Love your neighbor as I have loved you. I like that actually, because in today's gospel reading, we will hear Jesus say, love one another as I've loved you, because I don't want to be loved by certain people the way they love themselves. Most people cling to that commandment that says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But that's what's messing up the world, because, these people, if they love you the way they love themselves, run. If they love you the way they love them, run. Get out of there. Big difference between love one another as I have loved you. So how do we get in touch with that? I think I have until 3 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes? All right, I'm going to wrap this up. So going back to Absalom-Jones, one of the great gifts too, again, was Absalom staying in his integrity, knowing what it meant to love. And knowing what it meant to love even at that time when, as we remember, when you had the yellow fever here in Philadelphia. And we know that within a month or two, 5,000 people died. That's a lot. 5,000 people died. And those who had the means and the money got out of there. About 20,000 people left because they had the means. And so, the powers that be went to the black community and said, doesn't seem as if yellow fever, maybe yellow doesn't mix with black. Maybe you should help us with a rescue effort. Now, I'm sure that probably went two ways. They're like, let's help kill off the black people by having them deal with the yellow fever. Maybe. But Absalom-Jones said, yes, we will do it. And he took the charge. And I want to end on that. One lesson from Absalom-Jones is this, like how there is so much hating in this country today. Let me just say that again. There is so much hating in this country today. One more time. There's so much hating in this country today. And I'm repeating it because on one level, America isn't unique either. There is so much hating in the world. This is a global phenomenon. And it comes just from our resistance to God. And so the ongoing question is, why not be the person who remains loving amidst the hate? Why not be the person who learns from Absalom-Jones, how do you serve the very people who think you are not human? How do you love those who hate you? And so, as we say in Jamaica, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So those of us who are so politically inclined that sometimes our political leanings and our political commitment may actually lead us to not like our neighbors. Let's figure it out. Let's figure it out. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, hate can't do it. When you meet hate, and when you meet something that you don't love, when you meet something that you don't like, and when you see someone you want to kill, whether it's your priest or your president, oh yeah, or your wife or your husband, you only have one alternative. You only have one responsibility. Listen to God and love. Listen to God and love. No more killing. No more killing in thought, word, and deed. No more killing. Figure out a way to love. Hey, I love you. You're great. I love looking at your faces. How do I return this mic? Because I think I have to go ahead. Good.